Hello everyone, it's Space again. Welcome to another video. This is another one of the updates on the Code 3 models that I do. They seem to be quite popular, so I thought I'd do a quick update. Doing this one in February 2025. I've not done any modelling for quite a few months really. I was off work sick for a period of time in the early part of 2024 and I did a lot of modelling. Obviously a lot of time to do it, and I kind of burnt myself out. I got a bit sick of doing it. So I've had quite a few months away from the modelling bench. Returned to it about a month or so ago, and I've been slowly working on these three vehicles that you can see. So they're all repaints of EFE models. You've got two of the Greater Manchester Standard Atlanteans there, and you've got one of the Northern front entrance Routemasters there. All fairly straightforward. They're all just as standard repaints. Humbrol spray paint, number 18 orange and number 34 white. 34 white on the band on that one, and then 69 yellow. Humbrol tins of paint brushed on for the wheels, grey on these two, black on those, and obviously embellishments from Humbrol paint as well. Transfers, the ones on the Greater Manchester buses came from Michael Atkinson, who you can find on eBay, and the ones on the Northern Routemaster came from MMFF45, also on eBay. I've mentioned before that a lot of people don't sort of talk about what goes wrong with Code 3s, because things do go wrong with them. One thing that puts people off doing their own is you see pictures of ones that are finished and they're really, really good, and you think, oh, I couldn't do that. But the people only put on the ones that went right. There's quite a few more laid in people's scrap boxes and things that have gone wrong, and all of these did go wrong at some point. Luckily, touch wood, I've managed to pull them right again. The Routemaster, you can see, hopefully on the video, I'll just hold the light above it. If you look at the second window upstairs there above the door, you've got a line down the middle of it, or to one side of it. And the reason for that is that the glazing unit cracked when I took it out. Now, the reason for that is that sometimes on EFE models, particularly towards the end of the Gilbow era, so in the 2010s, they tended to reinforce the windows sometimes with a bit of glue. Most EFEs, they just windows clip in, you just push them in and out and that's it, and they just clip in by themselves. But as I say, towards the end of the Gilbow era, they seem to have some build quality issues and windows started to fall out, so they started to put random bits of glue on the windows on some models. You could take 10 of these apart and the windows wouldn't be glued in. But on this one, they'd put a little bit of glue to reinforce it on the front end of this glazing strip on the near side upper deck. So when I went to push them out, of course, it snaps. The back bit pushed out because they were just clipped in, but the front bit had a bit of glue reinforcing it, which I didn't realise. So it snaps, and it unfortunately snaps in the middle of the window. So I've had to put them back on in two different bits, which looks a bit rubbish, but I've not got a spare glazing unit, so I can't help it. The upper deck front windows also snapped. They were reinforced with glue, but luckily they snapped behind the pillar there, so they look alright from normal viewing. I've just put them back in, just put a little dab of super glue on them just to reinforce them. This bus had a mirror missing when I got it, so I've put a spare one on from my spares box. It doesn't actually match, but in real life a lot of the times you'd find buses running with odd shaped mirrors, where they'd put one on that they just had spare, so that it doesn't look too bad. And the final little act, you can see a little tiny chip in the paint on the front windscreen there, and that's because when I pushed the windscreen back in, it pushed off some of my newly applied paint. These Atlanteans show you how build quality can vary on models of the same casting from the same manufacturer. This one, which was the first one I started work on, the GMS one, Greater Manchester Buses South, that took me a whole hour to dismantle it. Now I thought the reason for that was that I was out of practice. It was the first model I'd done for a while, and it just took ages, but it seemed a really, really difficult one to get apart. I realised when I went to put it back together that the reason was that the lower deck interior was warped on it. And what they'd done, they'd just, obviously in the factory, they'd forced it together, so it was all far too tight. It was pushing on the pole that holds the thing together. So when I eventually got it apart, the pole was bent, which they'd done in the factory by forcing it together. They'd bent the pole. So I snapped that pole off and didn't reuse it. As it was, I didn't reuse either of them because there's part of a rivet in the back one there, and I can't get that out. So basically I've super glued the model back together. A couple of dabs of super glue between the decks, job's a good one. As you can see, it's glued together. That's the way I usually test to see if it's worked. But yeah, so I went to put it back together. Really struggled to get the near side glazing in on the lower deck because the seat unit was pushing up against the side because it was warped. But I managed to get them in, and then obviously couldn't do anything with it. When I went to put it together, I realised that the staircase was actually, instead of being hard up against the offside, it was kind of over towards the middle a bit because of the warping. And that meant it wasn't in line with the hole in the upper deck interior unit that obviously that the staircase goes inside it. I couldn't get it back apart again because obviously I'd taken that much effort to get it reassembled that I couldn't get the windows back out to get the seats out, etc. So what I ended up doing was cutting off the top step. I just cut the top off the staircase to give enough clearance for the upper deck, and then put it back together, and as I say, glued it. But it does show you the difference in models, because that one was a complete pig. As I say, it took me an hour to take it apart, and I've had to chop it about to get it back together. When I pushed the windows in as well on this one, a large chunk of the black paint around them came off, both on the offside and on the front. That's why I'm being a bit ginger in the way that I handle it, because there's some wet paint on it still where I've had to patch it up. This one, absolute dream. The same model. I mean, it wasn't the same, livery. This one was a Badger line, this one was Delane. But it's the same model, a Greater Manchester Atlantean by AFE. However, this one, it took me all of 2 minutes to dismantle it. It just fell apart, basically. When I looked at the rivets, it came apart. And similarly, it just went back together like a dream. All the windows clipped back in, the seats went in, and it just clunked back together without a problem. So it just shows you how it can vary. A lot of Code 3 repainters don't repaint the interiors so that they don't have to set the bus apart. They just mask the windows off and paint round them. But I prefer, if I can, to dismantle them because it makes it harder to get paint on the windows, basically. Even a klutz like me can't get paint on the windows if he's taking them out and put them separately. And I like to paint the interiors. I don't always bother. Northcore models I don't tend to do because their interiors are nicely painted and detailed anyway. So I just tend to not bother taking them apart. But yeah, EFEs I will generally dismantle. But as I say, you can come into pitfalls. You get ones like this one that have been badly assembled in the factory. You get ones like this one where they've put a few random bits of glue on to hold things in that you don't realise, and you end up snapping it. So they are some of the problems that you face when you're doing Code 3 repaints. Hopefully they've come out alright. Hopefully you think they're quite reasonable. I think I'm probably going to sell these two on. Get back some of the money. I basically bought them just to paint without any plan. This one I think is going into my collection because I've always wanted a GMS bus and I've never got around to doing one. So now I've got one. So as always, thank you very much for watching. Take care of yourselves. I'll see you again soon. Bye for now.